So Pacers back there for a second straight year. They'll play the Heat for the second straight year. First time the same teams will play in the conference finals since 05 and 06 when the Heat and Pistons met in back-to-back years. Miami and Indiana split their 4 meetings during the regular season. For more now, let's check in with the NBA Countdown crew.
They needed 7 games to beat the Atlanta Hawks, and then they looked terrible at times against the upstart Wizards, especially in Game 5. But in the end, the Pacers survive and advance, and just like everybody thought, it's the Pacers and the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. Bill Simmons, Doug Collins, and Jalen Rose. And Jalen has a gift for Bill. Just slide it on down,
Absolutely.
Jim.
It's not St. Elmo's, but I wanted to give you an appetizer. Since when the series was 1-1, you said the Pacers would not win another game. Bon appetit, my friend.
You're supposed to have opinions on this show. I had an opinion. I tried to stick with it.
We're not supposed to believe what he
Jalen's
says.
doing a lot of bragging for a team that took 13 games in the first 2 rounds to beat a young team and an under 500 team.
You're right. So what does this make you think of this Pacers team?
I think Miami's doing backflips. I just feel like the first 2 rounds couldn't have worked out better. They only played 9 games total. Now they have this Indiana team that goes like this, that got out-rebounded by 39 in Game 5. And really was ready to lose Game 6 until David West just wouldn't allow it to happen. I still like Miami in this series. As long as they're healthy, they have LeBron James. That's the team.
Well, when I look at Indy, you know, they wanted to have Game 7 in their building. They're the #1 seed. They have that. But Sage, they've got to start playing better at home. 35-6 in the regular season, 3-4 in the playoffs. That won't get it done. Their bench has got to play better. And I think Game 1 psychologically is vital for Indiana. Miami, if they come in and take that home court in Game 1, I would not like it for Indiana.
LeBron James, 4-time MVP. He's got to go against Paul George, who had his coming out party last year against the Miami Heat. One of the best two-way players we have going in the game. David West, Chris Bosh. Bosh is shooting more jumpers. David West more mid-range. Neither relies on their point guards to give them a lot of offense. Lance versus Dwayne Wade. Which player is going to be more consistent throughout the series?
And Doug talked about the home court for Indiana being a problem. It's not great for Miami either. I think they've seen more flat at home than they have on the road. This could be a series where you almost want to take the road team. I wonder if Indiana can say, we actually don't want home court.
Now,
you guys can have
this,
Game 7 at home.
What is it about Roy Hibbert against the Heat, too? Back in March, he had been in a huge slump, and he came back and played huge that day, too.
He's 7'2", and if you want to try to make the Miami Heat uncomfortable, you try to make them play big with 2 bigs. You don't want LeBron James playing a lot of minutes at the 4. The more he's at the 4, the more threes the Miami Heat can get to shoot.
And last year, Shane Battier had to guard David West and really had trouble with it. They never found the right matchup for him. I don't think that's changed this year. They still don't have the right matchup for him.
Fragile psyche, as Doug has described it, of the Indiana Pacers. We'll see what happens. Regardless, we will be there.
We're
Sunday,
going, back,
Eastern
back.
Conference Finals, Game 1, Bankers Life Fieldhouse. It's 3:30 Eastern Time tip-off on ABC. Just as everybody predicted, it's the Pacers. And
to Indy.
And the very simple headline in the Indianapolis Star this morning reads, next up, Miami. And a quick refresher, the Heat blew out the Pacers in Game 7 of last year's Eastern Conference Finals. Remember, they won by 23, but that was in Miami. This time around, the Pacers have the home court edge. And you remember going all the way back to early in the season, that was their publicly stated goal. We need to be home, and now they are. PJ's back with us. And, Coach, the Pacers and Heat split their 4 games during the regular season. Why are these 2 teams so evenly matched?
Well, the contrast in the styles. Indiana is a big team, and they really do damage inside against Miami. Their inside strength is a weakness for Miami, so they're matched up well against each other. Miami scores in transition. Miami makes the 3. So the contrast is such. Really, the way Indiana is constructed, they're built to play against Miami, so they're really a problem for them. You see their inside game, Jan Mahimi with the block shots. They block shots. They score inside. Roy Hibbert has to be a lot more consistent than he's been so far in the playoffs, but that little baby hook had better be working. David West is coming off a monster series, but these offensive boards, you need to get offensive boards against Miami. This one leads to a Paul George 3. So I like the things that Indiana's capable of doing if they do it consistently. Here's the problem. They turn the ball over too much. When you turn it over against Miami, it generally ends a dunk on the other end from LeBron James. And here's a really good sign for the Heat. They're making the 3s. We're used to seeing Ray Allen make his 3s in the 4th quarter, but Miami has improved their 3-point shooting from the regular season. They've gone from 36%, Jay, up to 38%. They're making 9 of them now. That used to be a way you could get against Miami. You could make some 3s against them. they're making their threes with regularity like they did last year, like they didn't do in the regular season. This should be a great series if Indiana plays like they did the first 50 or 60 games of the year.
Yeah.
And that's the huge question.
It is the huge question. And when you look at the numbers, PJ, it really drives home how Jekyll and Hyde this team has been. On March 17th, the Pacers were 50-17. Let that sink in. 33 games over 500. Since then, counting the playoffs, they are 14-14. So the big question is, which Pacers team shows up against Miami? The one that was 50-13 or the one that's been 14-14?
I just don't think you can go back to being as good as they were. They'll show up some of the games. I don't think there's any question about that. I think they're going to, make it interesting. But you have to be consistent. You have to build a bridge from the way you're playing recently to that next round. I cannot believe Indiana all of a sudden can become consistent and get back to the way they were playing in November, December, and January. They need to. If you're going to beat Miami 4 times, you got to be playing at a very, very high level. And the other thing that's concerning, Jay, they're not playing well at home. Bankers Life was their heart and soul. They were unbeatable. They had the best home record in the league for most of the league. Lately, they're playing better on the road. So winning in American Airlines is tough. They have to take advantage of their home court. They have to turn whatever switch or switches they have to go back in time about 3 months ago.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun series to watch. Coverage of the Heat Pacers Game 1, Sunday, 3 Eastern on ABC.